forensic psychiatrist and a self-proclaimed specialist in snuff murder. I realize in the past I've spoken about snuff films and, despite official opinion, have confirmed their existence. Well, I may have been somewhat hasty in my convictions. I am now here to expound the truth. The fact of the matter is true. Snuff films do not exist. Snuff films are, in fact, nothing but a big hoax. Snuff films do not exist. It's all a hoax. Snuff films are not real. They do not exist. Snuff films do not exist. They are not real. Snuff films do not exist. Snuff films do not exist. Snuff films do not exist.
I am Pete Jacelone, and I am an independent filmmaker.
I'm William Hellfire. Was the owner of Factory 2000 and currently still making films.
My name is Allison Davidoff, and I'm a filmmaker.
My name is Stephen Meitzler, and I'm an independent filmmaker from New Jersey.
I'm Greg Bierman. I'm an experimental filmmaker, video artist, and professor of film history and analysis.
My name is Genoveva Rossi. I'm a filmmaker, I'm a director, I'm a writer, and I'm an actress. I've been in over 106 films, and I've directed a short film, and now I'm working on my feature film, Attack of the Killer Chickens and Attack of the Killer Chickens, the movie.
Hey there, Tina Krause here. I am a horror actress, a production designer, and also a director of mainly horror films.
I'm Edward X. Young. I'm an independent cinema actor and writer, director, and producer.
I am Deana Demko. I am a scream queen and a sculptress.
Hello. Hi, I'm Lloyd Kaufman, president of Troma Entertainment and creator of The Toxic Avenger, and I'm here to tell you should always wear your mask, especially when COVID-19, when there's a pandemic on and 150,000 Americans are killed.
Hi, my name is Krause William Gonzalez, and here is Independent Filmmakers Freedom.
As far as the budget of horror films, a big budget is not necessary to make a successful film. A few of the most successful films in our generation were shot on a low budget, and I can name them. Paranormal Activity is an example, and also Blair Witch Project, a very low budget. I don't know exactly what those budgets were, but I bet they were less than $50,000. You don't need even that much money to make a film. All you need is a decent camera, some decent sound, and some good people, a good story, of course, and good actors to perform. You could literally make a feature horror film or any kind of film for probably for nothing, actually, if you have the equipment. Big budget is not necessary at all. Psycho Sisters was fairly large budget, I mean micro budget compared to Hollywood, but these days I shoot in micro budget. First of all, because I can't afford a big budget, and second of all, I don't think you need it. So anyone can make a film. In fact, that's probably one of the problems, that anybody can make a film. with literally no budget. The most important thing of any film, any horror film or any film for that matter, is the story, of course. If you have a good story, it can be done. It can be very successful as well.
Yeah, no, movies don't need to have a large budget to be good. There's movies like I'll give an example. The Bride of Frank is a very low budget, campy horror film, but it's absolutely amazing. It's touching. Just a great, all-around great film. I make movies, I haven't made a movie for more than $10,000, and my first film, Krause the Vampire 2, Teenage Girl Ghoul Go-Go, that was made for $250, and just everybody basically put their time in for free, and that movie made it to Tower Video, so it was on the new release wall, It was a strange time, though. It was the 90s.
So personally, I don't think that a big budget is needed to make a movie. I've seen many examples of films, and I've worked on many films, features and shorts, that required a shoestring budget and really didn't pay many people that much. They didn't really need a lot of money, and I think that as long as you know where to find things, and if you have people who are willing and passionate about the project, you don't need that much money. So once you start getting to the money, then it's all about the money. And yeah, you could have crazy special effects and cool stuff if you have money, but I also worked on a trauma film, and we had a shoestring budget on that. And we still got crazy special effects and wild things happening there. We blew up a car. You can do a lot of things without a lot of money. So I don't think it's vital to the situation, but I guess it helps if you want to make a living, but other than that, no, you don't need it.
Now, here's a question a lot of people ask me. Do you need a big budget to make a great film? And I'm going to say no, but I think you do need a budget. Meaning, I think you need some money to really hire the best people, to get the best cinematographer, to have a good script, to have a good story, and ultimately have it all brought together and edited really well. And I think you need some kind of budget to kind of do that. But it doesn't have to be a big budget, no. No, absolutely not.
No money is needed to make a good movie. What's needed is some talent, that doesn't hurt, but also drive. I think the hardest thing in the world is to finish a movie. Anybody who finishes a movie, no matter how rotten it may be. Michael Hers, my partner of 47 years, and I have 100% respect, 100%, in fact 1,000% respect for that person. I don't think a lot of money, if anything, a lot of money can hurt the movie, because the more money, the more chefs, the more suits. At least when you have a bunch of chefs, they have some kind of a cordon bleu degree or something. The suits in Hollywood are just a bunch of, what. So sometimes it's better not to have so much money and have control over your movies. And I've been doing it for 50 years. 50 years, so it's not so bad. And I've never had any money and no advertising. And movies we made 30 years ago, 40 years ago, are more active in the movie theaters than most of the mainstream movies that were made yesterday.
You could make a film for no budget. Maya Deren, the experimental filmmaker from the 40s, said that she spends as much on her films as the studio's films spend on lipstick. It's true that you might need some funding to do a film, depending on what type of film. But if you have your camera and you have your computer, and you can pay for electricity, or find a place where you can plug in your computer, then one can work independently of major amounts of funding. Can work without, completely outside of any kind of financial constraints. So I think that's something that I think young filmmakers especially, or people just beginning in making movies, have to sort of grapple with it,
Do you need a big budget to make a good independent film? Absolutely not. Look at Kevin Smith, for instance. He worked with a very small budget, a very low 5-figure budget, shot in black and white, but it was the screenplay, which is the backbone of any great story or any great movie. So you can have all the special effects, all the fireworks, all the explosions you want, but you need a really great story and a creative mind to get that message across. You do not need a big budget.
In fact, if I had $200 million, I wouldn't put it into one movie. I wouldn't put it into, let's see, 200 million, I would say 200. I think you could make 400 movies for $500,000 each. Can you imagine how many great movies you get instead of spending it all on one movie that basically looks like all the other movies? Yes, the first Deadpool was great. They are big fans of Troma. Yes, the first Spider-Man, the first few maybe, the Batman, whatever, but then it starts getting, at least to this 75-year-old pothead, it starts getting very mechanical and boring and formulaic, and I don't think that Iron Man Part 22 is going to be around in 20 years, whereas Terra Firma, Troma's War, The Toxic Avenger, Citizen Toxie, Return to Nukem High, Return to Nukem High, Mutant Blast, and now hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm. These movies are classics because they come from the heart, the soul, and the brain of the artist, and that's what makes them interesting. That's what gives them some fiber, some substance, so you don't just have diarrhea. You have a good, healthy turd after you've seen a healthy Troma movie that comes from the heart.
You know, it is a double-edged sword. It is a weird question. I can't fully agree with the fact that if, you know, low-budget films, you know, you don't need that money to make them. I don't agree with that at all. And I don't agree with the fact that you don't have to have that in order to make a really good one. You know, the more money you have, the more you can pay better actors, better equipment, better lighting, sound. It makes a difference. This is a package deal. This isn't just like, hey, you know, I got a great script, I got a couple of good actors, and I got a camera and I know how to use it. Let's go shoot a movie. I mean, that's awesome thinking, but the truth is, if you really want that movie to be picked up, if you really want that movie to be looked at, if you really want that movie to make a statement with your name on it as a director, okay, you need to pay attention to those things. And yeah, that's the reason why people are on Indiegogo, to get the money to raise to do those things. So while I do and don't feel you need it, you kind of do need it. You know, I like I said, if I had the budget that I wanted to make my movie, forget it. It would have been, I could have done anything I wanted. I had some crazy ideas. I have crazy ideas for the next one, but I need a decent budget to do it. I can't do it on a low budget. It just wouldn't even fly.
Roll 5-2, scene 19A, sound take number 619, take 1.
Psycho Sisters was really cool. Actually, we, in collaboration with Wave Productions, we made a shot-on-video version of it using Pamela Such and Tina Krause and Christine Taylor as the Psycho Sisters. And it was sort of a demo for my idea. A few years later, I met up with Mike Rasso, who at that time was involved with alternative cinema. And he was a distributor and also a filmmaker. And we decided to co-produce a feature film. So we remade Psycho Sisters, we rewrote it and expanded on the original idea, and we shot it on 16mm film. That was in 1999, starring J.J. North, Theresa Lynn, and it was quite an aggressive project, shot on film. It was probably a 21-day shoot, I believe, very expensive for the time. And but I'm very happy with the result and just haven't stopped making films since.
I guess my most successful film was Duck, the Carbine High Massacre. And in part, it was an accident that it was a success. When I first made it, I think we sold 100 copies at Chiller, which was pretty good. It was about 4 times what I normally would sell it at one given Chiller. It was a satire on Columbine and the media's take of Columbine. And it was a VHS release. This was October 1999. In January of 1999, I got arrested for having guns on school grounds to make the movie. And I got a lot of TV coverage for free. So all of a sudden the movie was, you know, I think it got to like 250 ranking on Amazon at the time. I think we sold maybe 400 or 500 VHS independently because I couldn't find a distributor for it. because of the kind of controversial subject matter. But later it came out on DVD through Shriek Show. So I would say that's my most successful film. And that was a $3,000 budget, shot in 10 days.
My upcoming short film called Influencer is about this college student who gets mixed up in a famous YouTuber's cult, where she has to do some truly disturbing things to ensure that she belongs before they get rid of her instead. So my movies don't typically cost that much. My past movie, Influencer, cost the most. That cost $3,000. But typically my movies cost less than $1,000. So you don't really need that much to make a movie. You just need a lot of money to pay for people's food.
But there's actually one movie I made as a director. It was called Two Guys, One Box. Connected with these people out in the Chicago area that did this anthology series like once or twice a year. It was called The Collective. And what they would do is they would choose for each DVD, Collective, whatever volume it was, they would choose 10 filmmakers who auditioned or solicited the right to make a film. Each one of these 10 filmmakers would be assigned to make a 10-minute movie. The movie had to be 10 minutes, 30-second leeway in either direction, but no more or no less. I got this box, called my friend who's a lightning-fast screenwriter, John McCormick, and I told him the situation. I said, you know how my friends are and the actors I work with, the people I know, the weirdos that I associate with. I need a script. I need a script tomorrow. I got this box. And I said, these are the people I'd like to have acting in it. Mostly a lot of rock and rollers from the old CBGB scene. And so he wrote me a screenplay within 24 hours. I had it. And I was in New York at the time. I called a filmmaker friend of mine, a cameraman, a sound guy, Cameron Scott, lived out in Ohio. And he agreed to, he wasn't working at the time, but he had some money in the bank. He agreed to hop in his car and drive out to New York to meet up with me. And my fiancée Susie was in the hospital at the time, and I wasn't leaving her side. She was getting very ill. I credited her as a producer. But I said, look, I'm not leaving the hospital, but I'm in the Bronx. I'm in a hospice in the Bronx, but we're going to utilize the stuff around us. So we shot this movie in one day. We shot it in one day, 20 hours. We rented out a room in a sleazy, questionable motel in the Bronx and got together a bunch of crazy rock and rollers. And I didn't have a lot of money, but I bought a lot of booze and pizza and told them all, look, I don't care what kind of drugs you're using. I know you're a bunch of addicts. But but as long as you remember your lines, I'm not going to get mad at any of you. And we made this nasty little H.P. Lovecraft-style comedy about this box, which was a key to another world. We gave it a provocative title to make it sound like a porno movie, so people would want to watch it. I just went balls to the wall. It's a nasty little film. It's been nominated for a bunch of awards, and I'm very proud that in the movie I have the late great Lee Black Childers, who is a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for being a photographer and a band manager among many bands. Johnny Thunder's Heartbreakers, he managed them. But also Lee worked with Andy Warhol's factory, and he just thought the crazy method with which we made this movie. He said he was from the South, and he said, man, this reminds me so much of when I was working with Andy back in the old days. It's like going back to my youth. And so we did finish this wonderful picture. And I hope you'll see it. Two Guys, One Box. It's out there. I added up, this is bizarre. How much did Two Guys, One Box cost? And we did it in 2 weeks. It was completely edited with titles slapped on. Even found a musical scoring artist that already had done a sound score for a movie that never got made. So I got to inherit the music, and it fit the atmosphere perfectly. And but when I added up the receipts, it was rather bizarre. The movie actually cost me, and it's like an occult-based horror comedy about trying to conjure up the devil through this box. And the movie turned out, when I added the receipts, it cost me $666.
like, do you need to go to film school to be a filmmaker?
Yeah,
No, not at all. I went to college, but not for film. I thought it was boring. I dropped out twice. I started making movies just because I loved films, and I saw that there was this world of independent, low-budget, shot-on-video films that were being made in people's backyards and being distributed. And I felt, oh, I can do that, you know, cool. You know, and I just put my kind of unique spin on it. And so anybody can do that.
Yeah, why not? There is I mean, it's like, if anything, it would just be like bragging rights of people that are like, oh, I never went to school. I'm just a fucking genius and I just know how to do this innately. And it's like, yeah, I can tell. I could tell you didn't go to school. It's like, yeah, and they can't teach you everything, because I went to film school and even during the process, because I was already working in the industry, I remember thinking, like, I feel like I learned so much more just being on set than I ever did, you know, in film school. But it goes both ways. I mean, there's things that it's certainly helpful to have the formal education, and also there's things that they can't really like teach you in a classroom that you kind of have to just learn through experience and through doing it. But I think, you know, I think education's important. No, pertaining to the school thing of, like, you know, experience versus, you know, formal education, I was saying it's like learning how to play guitar. You could pay somebody for years and years and years to teach you how to play guitar, but I think it'll kind of like plateau until you start a band, or like working with other musicians and, like, you know, creatively, because it's a collaborative thing, you know, that like you learn through doing it and through working with other people, you know, in this metaphor, with other musicians, like, yeah, as opposed to like being a filmmaker and then you start working on films, and it's, yeah, just stuff that they can't teach you in school.
Should you go to school to be a filmmaker? I mean, I guess that's up to each individual person. Like, you know, I don't think it hurts. I think there's really good aspects of it. I did go to a film school, but it wasn't like a big prestigious film school. It was like a film department. And it was cool because it wasn't huge and it wasn't very competitive in the sense that, like, I didn't ever feel super like, I'm gonna make a better movie than that person. Just wanted to make movies, and everyone kind of worked on each other's shit. So, you know, I think I kind of mentioned in the actor part, but like, yeah, you'd run, you know, sound on one person's film, and then they, you know, you'd need an actor for a scene, and you'd ask that person. So, you know, there was a cool, like, communal feeling to the place I went. And yeah, and I enjoyed that. And, you know, in film school, you learn about your f-stops and how to light and how to shoot a proper interview, and, you know, and how to do production book and all that shit. And, you know, it's good. You know, I had two professors. One was more do things by the book. You know, make a production book, have everything shot listed, and every, you know, and just, I mean, super prepared, super, you know, scheduled out, which, yes, is good. You know, that person was very by the book, and they went on to, you know, I remember even when we were in school, they directed like a Law and Order episode, and that stuff is just so formulated, you know, it bores me, but, like, you know, you can't tell, oh, that person directed that episode of Law and Order. They just kind of all blend together, you know. And then I had the other professor who was more, you know, guerrilla, go out, get your shot, then get arrested. Like, don't worry about permits. The other teacher would, oh, go get your permit, get insurance, do that. So, and it was good to have that balance, you know. But even without that said, oh, and another cool thing about film school is, like, you know, you get free equipment. So I was always working on something else too, and, you know, you can rent equipment. You can, you know, we had, you know, we learned how to shoot on film. We had Bolexes, so we shot on actual film on 16 millimeter, and we edited it that way on I forgot what it's called, the editing machine, Steamvec, I think. And so that was awesome. That was fun. I got to shoot and edit a film, actual film, and which I don't think they have there anymore or offer there anymore. Yeah, but, you know, with all that being said about film school, again, like, some people don't, and that makes their films unique. After college, You know, I worked for a company, a film company, whatever, but it's like about actual making movies. I learned more by working with Jim Van Bebber and Frank Henenlotter, like working on their movie sets, than I learned in any film school or anything. You know, like worked with Van Bebber on various projects. You know, I did a documentary about him, but I also had worked on his films before, behind the scenes and stuff. And yeah, and then Henenlotter, I worked with him on a movie called Chasing Banksy. Associate producer, I think my credit is, which is awesome. But yeah, I was like running around like PA work and shooting behind the scenes and just, you know, PA work, you know. And it was awesome. And they're two very different directors, Jim Van Bebber and Frank Henenlotter. And it was amazing being able to work on both their films. You know, they're both film guys. They both still shoot on film. And both those, you know, projects were film, and but they're both very different personality-wise and film-wise. But again, that's great. Like, you know, carrying that on from film school, having the two balances. You know, working on two different film sets. Man, I learned more about working with Henenlotter. Just like working on a film in New Orleans, like it was the greatest film experience of my life.
I mean, I guess it's not a requirement, because I feel like even with art, regular art, like as sculpting, I didn't go to school for sculpting, but I learned a lot from other people. I think it probably helps to enhance their skills. I know that I've taken like online teachings for sculpting, and it enhances what you do. But do I think that people need to go to school to be filmmakers? I don't think that will make you a good filmmaker. I mean, it depends on what you pick up, what you learn, and I also think it depends on your creative sense.
I think being a filmmaker, perhaps there's some knowledge I'm lacking, but I do surround myself with film students and film professionals. So if I do need help in the technical aspects, I look to my crew and my cast. And to me, it doesn't work as a disadvantage. I'm always learning. I mean, I learn online. I'm learning from my cast and crew. I learn every time I make a film. And I think to be successful in any profession, you don't necessarily need a formal education. In fact, I think in older times, some of the most successful scientists had no formal education. So am I discouraging a filmmaker from going to film school? No, you need to learn as much as you possibly can, whether that's self-learning or formally learning. But I personally don't regret not going to film school.
Wait, Rick, there's somebody there.
Hey, asshole, what the hell are you looking at? Oh, fuck!
What makes indie films more unique than Hollywood films? Well, it's a good question. There's probably a lot of answers for that, but if I were to give you one, I would say the stories. I feel like indie filmmakers have a little bit more freedom to be able to express what they want, which is great because they're not under the Hollywood clause of having to fill like explosions or, you know, fill action. You gotta fill this. It has to be here. It's gotta be in an iconic area. Blah blah blah, etc. etc. I feel like with indie filmmaking, you really, 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 really have to do your job. You're not backed up by a lot, except for you, your idea, your creativity, and who you're working with. And I mean, hopefully you got a good crew, you gotta get everything. Good story, that's another thing. Your stories have to be excellent to keep the attention of the viewer. Remember, you're not working with bells and whistles, and that's going right back to, you know, do I think you need to have a decent budget to make a movie? or for it to look good, or et cetera, et cetera. So when you're an indie filmmaker, you gotta be ultra creative if you're gonna be successful.
In my humble opinion, I think that they're more unique because, yeah, you're allowed a certain freedom. You know, like, we don't really censor ourselves. We have this kind of like niche audience and not too concerned about crossing over to like have some mass appeal. It's like we can just say what we want, you know, tell the story we want, and, you know, worry about, you know, if it's, yeah, if it has some like mass appeal, or if it's like marketable in that sense. It's like, you know, we just want to tell this story and not feel like stifled or censored in any way. And yeah, doing indie stuff kind of like allows you that freedom.
I would say, you know, you have to find more unique ways to do things. You have to find cheaper ways to do things. So sometimes you got to get really creative with your locations and your editing, and you know, you have a lot of budget restraints. So you're forced to get more creative and really figure things out. So that's what I think makes them. You don't have as many restrictions. You have a big studio controlling stuff. It's just more like-minded people working together, you know, usually. So I think that has a hand in making them more unique, you know. Like I said, you have to get more creative. You have to be super resourceful with whatever you have. You're working on such a lower budget than Hollywood stuff, you know. And yeah, you just got to do what you got to do. You got to work with what you got, and you got to, you know, make it work tenfold, make it look way bigger than it is.
Independent films are trying to make a name for themselves. They're trying to get their stuff out there. They're passionate about it. I think that Hollywood is just trying to usually make money. And that's not to say that there aren't some good directors out there that aren't passionate about their films, because of course there always are. But I think that the independent people are just trying that much harder to get themselves out there.
I think the joy of independent filmmaking is the joy of art, of expressing oneself freely, independently, if you have something to say, and that's a big problem. I'm in about 400 movies, and many of those filmmakers really didn't have much to say. So if you've got something to say, if you have something in your soul, if you have the penchant of an artist, go for it, for sure. And do what is in your heart. I don't think there's any reason not to. Boy, have I been lucky. I've been making independent movies for 50 years. How many Hollywood directors, how many mainstream film directors or writers or whatever can boast that they've been making movies without anybody telling them what to do, totally free, all thanks to our fans. Troma has been fan-fueled for 47 years. And the original so-called business plan, which there was none, was to keep the budgets low, don't bet the house on one movie, do movies that mean something, that come from the heart, the soul, and the brain of the filmmaker, and own your negatives, own the negatives, build up a collection and a brand. And that's pretty much what we've done. Troma is a micro brand, and the main reason that we're still around is thanks to you fans who have supported us, even though we have no advertising and we don't get on any mainstream publications or television shows. So thank you, Troma fans. And all the people that's worked for us over the 50 years, a lot of them are now big shots, and they're putting me in their movies and giving Troma money, and they're renting our stock footage, and some of them are acquiring our movies. In fact, example, we were on Shudder, and that was thanks to Justin Martell and John Brennan, who used to work for us and produced #Shakespeare Shitstorm. So I should have no complaints, but I got plenty of regrets.
My favorite part about indie filmmaking, I have to do a comparison, because I have worked on studio projects. I've done a lot of background extra work on studio stuff, and I've witnessed the actors working in these films. And I told you, I've got friends who I now regularly see on TV shows. I'm not going to go listen to names. Friends I went to college with who went out there when they were young, and I see them on the big screen, and I see them on the TV screen too. And the problem I see with the studio big budget stuff is that unless you're a major star, you haven't got a lot of clout, a lot of input. It's almost the films I've worked on doing background work, even when and I've been a featured extra too, where I get my close-up on the screen. I'm technically an actor, I got no lines, but it's like a military operation. You get there and you're put into your uniform, don't even think of improvising, do as you're told, shut up, don't talk, just sit in that corner, have your cup of coffee, wait until we call you, hurry up and wait. It can get tedious, but the beauty of independent cinema, and also, I gotta say, the problem with Hollywood too is nobody takes chances anymore. It might have been different in the late 70s and early 80s when there was some wild mavericks making some incredible pictures like The Wild Bunch or Easy Rider or Chinatown or Mean Streets. Hollywood, the movies are too expensive, so there are no chances to be taken. And every project that is made has got to appeal to the greatest cross-section of the public so they make the biggest profit. If you want original thought and daring art, really if you want stuff that takes chances, you're only going to find it in the indie market. And the best thing about these indie guys is most of them, they don't act like Hollywood pricks. They will listen to you, and they'll take your advice. You'll have a degree of creative input and freedom. You'll have an opportunity to express your own ideas. And many of these people, like Pete Jacelone, where I worked on the Killer Clown Meets the Candyman, I can put a lot of my own stuff into it, and if he likes it, he uses it, and then it's a great feeling. But it's the freedom. Look, you're not going to get paid as much in the indie market. You might not have enough to even pay the bills. You'll get paid a lot more in Hollywood. You'll be paid a lot more, but it's a job. You'll be doing what you're told, showing up, doing your job. You can't change it in any way. And if you're not the major star, who's going to even notice you? Your friends will see you on the screen, but in the indie world, it's different. You could go places artistically that you can't in the professional, in the big leagues.
What makes independent films more unique than Hollywood films? I would probably say the creative freedom. Because in Hollywood, you're under a lot of restrictions, a lot of contracts. You have to answer to producers, you have to answer to your clients, you got to answer to investors. Independent filmmakers, you're pretty much doing it yourself. You might have a small crew of friends, a small crew of people that you work with, but you have more creative freedom. You don't have to answer to anybody. You enter the film festivals, you do all the editing yourself, so you have more creative control over it.
When you're an indie filmmaker, you don't have certain, I guess you could say, restrictions, as opposed to a Hollywood filmmaker who has a lot of restrictions. They have to do things with SAG. There's certain things that are allowed. There's certain things that aren't. You can't shoot at certain places. You're an indie filmmaker. You probably shouldn't shoot in certain places, but heck, if you can get away with it, go for it. Nobody's going to stop you on that. No one's going to argue with you. The more creative you are, the better your movie's going to be. You're going to have to learn to work with certain things because you don't have X, Y, and Z. You got to learn how to get around it. That's what makes an indie filmmaker, a good indie filmmaker, unique. You really got to know your stuff. You got to know your stuff. You got to sell your piece. You have to. It's important. And also, the other thing that makes them really unique is the message. You can say whatever you want as an indie filmmaker. You're going to get some backlash if you say the wrong thing, but you can still say it. If you're Hollywood, there's certain things you can and cannot say. There's certain things that will and will not fly. When you're an indie filmmaker, you can get a message across, and it can be strong. And for anybody who out there who has like a story to tell, something serious, something real, and is afraid to do it, I beg you, do it. Do it. We need it.
If I were to say, to a young filmmaker, hey, these are the requirements to making an independent film, I'm a little jaded, I would say nudity, naked girls, and something subversive. Don't try and make a silly romantic comedy on a $1,000 budget because it's gonna fall short. You know, that's not how they don't market that way. Make a horror film, you know, or some kind of exploitation or porn, and make it subversive. You know, push some boundaries, have some fun.
So, one of the things I learned was that in order to be a filmmaker, you have to make films, and also that you can make films. And this was in the 80s, where you actually had to buy film material. You had to have a lab process that, you know, to develop it. You had to have someone print it and so forth. You know, you would have to have what was known as an optical soundtrack made from your sound materials that you recorded and mixed and so forth. So all of that was technologically much more difficult than it is now, where if you have a $3,000 computer and an iPhone, you know, you could actually make a film. In some ways makes it even more open than it was in the 80s. In some ways it might be too open, because film festival people tell me that in a festival that in the 80s might have had 300 applicants, now has 1,300 applicants, you know, for the same number of film slots, you know, for programming. So there's a lot of competition out there, for sure. There are a lot of people making films, but I think all in all that's a good thing. Hopefully it's a democratizing thing in media. Media is not just going one way now. The internet especially is making it go more than one way, that you can consume, but you can also put things back out there. You know, I think those are all positive developments in the end.
Well, my answer is indie films are so punk rock. You know, anything goes. Indie film is like what punk rock was in the 70s. It's daring, it's rebellious, it's experimental, it's avant-garde. It could be anything you want it to be. And it doesn't follow the normal rules that we have in Hollywood. Indie filmmaking doesn't really have anyone to answer to, except for the filmmaker, except for the director and the writer. It's all about them. You know, they're kind of commanding the ship, and who knows where it's going to go. It's pretty cool.
I do like playing like a villain or a monster or just an insane person. It's kind of cathartic, you know, to do all like the nasty, mean, crazy things that, you know, you have to kind of suppress in normal human existence. So I do like that. I like taking roles like that. But very early on in my career, I think just because I looked pretty innocent and very young, I was often cast as like the girl next door or the victim. And then when I started getting kind of like creepier roles and like show that I did kind of have the range and the ability to do that, that's when it started getting really fun for me.
My favorite thing about acting is, you know, being able to say things and do things that you would never normally say, or wear shit you would never normally wear. Putting on a costume, playing a different character. It's fun. I think acting is really fun, you know. Sometimes people complain about being on set for long periods of time and waiting around, and that's a big part of, you know, being an actor or whatever. But, you know, there's times I've been on set and acted in somebody's film, you know, which is usually somebody I know. I've never, like, actually been casted in something, I don't think. It was just your, you know, people you know through the industry or whatever, or like, hey, be in my film, whatever. So, you know, people sometimes complain about being on set for a long period of time, or, you know, there's a lot of waiting around involved in being in films. But, like, I like that. It's kind of cool sometimes when you're on a set and you don't have a huge role, but you have like a big line or something, or a big scene, and, you know, you can watch the other people work, you can watch them act, you can kind of see how they are and how you're gonna mesh, and then, you know, you can practice your lines all day. So, you know, it's fun. And the best part of acting, yeah, it's also a connection to youth and childhood. And sometimes I think it's funny to put in your movies like really shitty Party City type costumes and stuff, because that's like what you did as a kid. And, you know, you get a costume from the dollar store or whatever, or, you know, a fake police badge or whatever, and a fake gun, and that was sufficient enough to make your film, and you thought that was, hey, they'll believe this. And sometimes you do that to this day, you know. But yeah, acting and putting on a costume and all that is. There's a little bit of it that makes you feel like you're never going to grow up, or you're not growing up. You're just a kid still playing dress up with your friends.
I would guess I'd have to say that you get to be someone else for a while. You get to do something else. You get to be someone that you can't be in your normal life, you know? It's fun to just step out of the real world for a while.
My favorite part about filmmaking is definitely the after product. You put all the work, the time, the effort in putting the film together. And the best part is when you finally get to see the finished product. That's the best part about it.
3 reasons: the history, pleasure, and joy of escapism. The creation of the modern-day amusement park has also enabled many brave individuals to stand up to the Triple Dog Challenge, while many others would be just as fine riding the bench and chowing down on a Mickey Mouse ice cream bar.
So I've shot a few films over the years, but I'm very proud of 2 of them that were in film festivals. East Coast Thrills and East Coast Thrills 2, which are both about theme parks from across the United States.
I would probably have to say my favorite that I ever did was Beth from Faces, because I got to play a psycho, but not like an obvious psycho. So she was kind of a fun character. Like, she kind of took everybody off guard. Everybody thought she was sweet. And then when you see like the other side of her, the producer, Tom Ryan, keeps saying that he wants to do just a film about her, and I think that that would be fun.
What is the film I'm most proud of? I mean, it's got to be Thrust 100%, you know. It's just biggest budget thing I ever worked on or made myself, and first completed narrative feature film. And yeah, I'm just proud of all the performances in it and glad that it all came together the way it did, and super proud of that movie and everybody in it and everyone that worked on it. It's, you know, because it's taken like 10 years, maybe even more, to kind of get it going. Like, it's been a project I've wanted to do for a long time, 10 plus years. And finally have it made is a good feeling. And to have it out there and see people digging it and is awesome. It's a great feeling.
No, bitch. No men allowed.
But what about them?
No, bitch. No men allowed.
There was a band.
Traded Doc Dominator some pink for some stink.
I knew it. I fucking knew it. The gun's in there. Hey, go take care of those pigs. Yeah. You go break the law, we'll go get the heat.
I think that hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm is our best film, Troma's best film, and my best film. It's based on The Tempest, which is my favorite work by William Shakespeare. And it's full of magic, it's druggy, it's got a monster, it's a crazy... I wouldn't be surprised if the Bard was taking a lot of hard drugs. If you've seen Winter Storm, holy cow, Winter's Tale, that's gotta be LSD induced. At any rate, I think it's the most interesting. It deals with the fact that little children for the past 50 years have been brainwashed by television ads for hard drugs, for addictive drugs, from the time they're babies watching the Today Show with their mommies while they eat the Fruit Loops and become obese. They are inhaling all these TV spots telling people to take a purple pill or a green pill, or I got CPOD, I'm so cool. Hep C, hey, you got Hep C? Yeah, I got Hep C. Nothing wrong with that, just take a pill. Right? How about taking a bath?
Oh yeah, it's the best film that I've done so far. Just the art department was crazy good. My DP was amazing. My gaffer was amazing. Everybody on that set was amazing. It not only looked amazing, but the story was so on point. I went through 3 different screenwriting professors to ensure that it was the best that it could possibly be. And I think we got a really great, amazing movie out of it. It just looks amazing, and the story makes sense and is really good, if I do say so myself. I want to be modest here. But yeah, it came out great, and I really hope that everybody enjoys it when they watch it.
Now, I would have to say as a director, my best film is whatever film I'm working on now, which is Attack of the Killer Chickens, the movie. And before that, it was the short film Attack of the Killer Chickens. But as an actress, I'd have to say, after doing about 106 or so films, the best films I've done as an actress are the films that challenge me and make me step outside of myself. They say the best film roles are the ones you never thought you could play. And I think that's definitely true. The ones that make you step outside of your comfort zone.
I don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a fire in your heart.
I think my advice to you fledgling filmmakers would be to thine own self be true, a phrase coined by one William Shakespeare, who, as everybody knows, wrote that best-selling book, 101 Money-Making Screenplay Ideas, otherwise known as Hamlet. Right, Toxie? Toxie agrees.
My advice for independent filmmakers, 2 pieces of advice. 1, don't go into filmmaking thinking that you're going to come out being Scorsese or Spielberg. It's a very rare chance, not impossible, but very rare chance. Go into it with the mindset that you want to show people something creative, that you want to show people what you can do, your craft. You want to wow them. You want to make something that you're proud of. That's the mentality that you want. And the second thing is, even with all the technology out there, all the social media websites, go back and watch the old films from the 30s, 40s, 50s, all those different genres, because they will teach you something about early filmmaking that can help you even today.
Just do it. Just go make a film. This day and age, you could just go grab a camera, go steal it from like your parents' room or something, and go outside and make a movie happen. You can even just write a little script if you want a script on like a loose leaf sheet of paper. It's not that crazy or intense. Just do it. Just go make the film happen. So many people just don't make it happen. And so many people just sit there and go, oh, I want to make this. Oh, I want to make that. Then go make it. Just go do it.
No excuses, right?
No excuses. No days off. Go make your movie.
My best advice is to make films. It's amazing when I talk to students and they haven't done any work and then they don't have an idea. But you don't have an idea until you start to work. So it's kind of a catch-22. I find that when I'm working on things, that's when the ideas come. And even if I'm not actually working on them at the moment, if I'm still like giving it the mental space, in other words, giving it time to think about what I'm doing, ideas will also come. And as you start to collect these ideas and start to work on them, and as they change as you work on them, suddenly you're a filmmaker, you know. And it's also important not to think you're going to be Fellini at the first effort. These things take some time to develop your own sensibility. So, for example, a lot of filmmakers are influenced by other filmmakers, right? And they start out by imitating. But then after imitating for a while, you start to get your own voice. You understand what you're doing, you understand what those other people were doing. You begin to have a sensibility of your own, body of work of your own, style that you come back to, you know, themes that you come back to, maybe formal elements that get fleshed out in different ways. So all of those things can only happen if you do the work. If you work, and of course you should only do the work if you want to. You know, people. My cardinal rule, it seems to me, is that people will do what they want to do.
For anybody who does want to get into it and your heart's really in it, pick up a camera. Pick up your fucking iPhone, all right? Use it. It actually, the 11 is a pretty good camera on there. Take your iPhone and test shoot something. Write a script that revolves around one location, okay? Give yourself a challenge, you know? Make sense of it. You don't have all this money. You got to find a good actor. Maybe you can pay them. Maybe you can't. Maybe you're cooking dinner for them. I don't know. You know, maybe if you do artwork, you're trading art. Whatever it is, okay? Do something like that. Test it. See. Listen to the sound. Play it somewhere. Get it on your screen. Find a little editing program that you can use. It's not going to be too difficult. Okay? And see what it looks like. See if you actually, can relate to what you just shot. And see how hard it is. See that it's not easy. Understand why, when you play it on a big screen, it's going to come out completely pixelated. These are not things that you're thinking when you're a director. You're thinking about the movie and everything else. You're not thinking about these other things. It's the reason why you need money to make a decent movie. That's the reason. Also marketing. If you want your film to go out there and be known and like get picked up and do this, that, and the other, and da-da-da-da, there's got to be a marketing team behind it. This isn't just shoot and, go. And then again, the other question you got to ask yourself, what are you doing it for? If you're doing it to go and make, cult movies in a certain look, then maybe you can get away with it. If that's your audience, that's another thing. What's your audience? There's so many things that come into play. So anybody starting to make a film, I would suggest not only try it, pick up the camera, go for it, but do some research on it. Do some reading, okay? Find out what really goes into making a film.
I saw a number of films. I saw how I believe it should be done, and I just did it. And I think, in my case anyway, some of the just winging it and just going for it worked to my advantage and enabled me to pull off some things that I think if I did have formal training, I might have been afraid to do or would have taken a heck of a lot longer to do. If you want to become an independent filmmaker, I would just say, just make sure you're surrounded by people that share your passion, your assistants, your actors, and just do it. Just do it, but make sure you do it right, and just make sure you have the proper equipment and decent lighting and decent sound, and of course a decent story. Anybody can do it, and I would encourage you to do it. Again, if you have the passion and desire to tell an interesting, compelling story.
Start small, I think. Don't try and bite off like a really huge endeavor on your first go. Make your first movie, think about what you're doing. Like, okay, I've never done this before. Make it small. Keep it easy. Have fun with it. Go through the whole process. Force yourself to finish. A lot of young filmmakers, they get excited and then get overwhelmed and they don't finish and they never release it. And release whatever you do. Don't say, oh, it's not good enough. Most of my movies aren't good enough. Release what you do, Let the public judge it,
To make a good film, you should have a passionate crew behind it. You should also have a very good group of actors, because the better and more passionate your crew is, the more they want to be with you on the project. Because I've known so many film shoots where they needed a pickup day or they just needed to add extra days, and all the crew just crumbled and faded away, and all of a sudden they just didn't have a crew anymore. If you don't have a crew that's passionate about your project and super into it, and maybe you want crew members that are your friends and have been with you through a few film shoots. That way, they'll be more inclined to stay with you, because if you don't have a crew, you don't have a movie. As much as that pains me to say. The other thing is that you want to have good actors, because actors are important. And without actors, you can't make the story come alive. And if you don't have a good story, your whole film's just ruined. Thrown to the wind. Ooh, a story. You want to have a really good, strong story if you're going to make an indie film, because it could look beautiful and it could look great, but if that story isn't there, I'm not invested, and I do not like that film. Like, I know so many people in film school, or just not even just in film school, just in general. I know so many people who could make things look amazing, and it just has no story behind it. And it might look amazing, but if there's no story, it's gonna fall flat. And nobody's gonna buy it. And nobody's gonna really think anything of it, because you can make anything look good. You can make anything look good. You just can't make everything capture you and kill your emotions and draw on that. It's all emotional. And if you can't really play on that, then you don't really have a good movie.
Well, if you want to get your foot in the door, I think you kind of have to earn your way into the business. I think you have to network. I think you have to start at the bottom, work your way up. Be eager to learn. Don't be afraid to wear a lot of different hats. Learn as much as you can and move up from there.
Support indie cinema. Who needs Hollywood? Hollywood's dead. Come on. They're making movies by, well, now and then a good movie might come out. But by and large, they're making movies by formula. They're just trying to appeal to the widest cross-section. Very little freedom. You got to, in order for independent cinema to thrive, you've got to support the independent artists. It's great because independent cinema, its movies are where it's at now. This is the new punk rock. This happened with music in the 70s. Now it's happening with cinema. But buy the DVDs, support the artists, go to the festivals. I mean, don't just try to make them, but, you know, support these starving artists who are giving you real art. We need your help. We need you to back us. We're nothing without the audience. Without you, we're nothing.
Make something challenging, you know, make something unique, something that's your own. You don't have anybody telling you what to do. You're making your own film, so you have all this freedom. Use it.